The Honourable the member for Stephenville, Port.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and certainly a pleasure to join today in the debate. Of course, we're debating the private member's resolution brought forth by the member for Topsail Paradise, with the Minister of Natural Resources making one minor amendment, just to read it into the record here. Be it resolved, agreements respecting future Churchill River hydropower developments and/or renegotiation of the Upper Churchill Power contract shall be brought to the House of Assembly for public debate and members' vote prior to ratification. And so I think our amendment was quite friendly, as was pointed out. I believe the member from Mount Pearl North also certainly said that they would perhaps be certainly agreeing with the amendment. And you know, it's just interesting that we're hearing this type of debate today. You know, we certainly on the government side understand the importance of openness and transparency and accountability, and we're certainly committed, as the Premier has stated and as the Minister of Natural Resources has stated, we're certainly committed to debating things that are important, specifically things of this magnitude. And we're talking about the development of power, and we're talking about things that are going to affect all of the citizens in our province. So we're certainly open to debating this stuff in the House of Assembly. What was pointed out by the member for Lab West in his commentary to the subject, there's really a great bit of irony in seeing this being brought forth today when we're hearing this, that they want us to debate this type of legislation in the House of Assembly. The members opposite didn't have any public debate on Muskrat Falls in the House of Assembly. There was no debate. The only debate that did occur was based on a private member's resolution brought in by then Premier Dunderdale, suggesting that the government would support the sanctioning of the Muskrat Falls project. And so that was the only type of debate we heard on the subject, despite cries from the opposition members of the time, despite cries from the public at the time. And this is the only type of debate we heard. So we've clearly stated we're more than willing to debate this in the House of Assembly. You know, the other thing that took place, I guess, was around the energy agreement and the agreement with Emira. And that was something that also didn't take place in the House of Assembly. That's another important component to the Muskrat Falls project, did not take place here in the House of Assembly. And you know, we heard today from members opposite all about the history of the Lower Churchill, and we've learned a little bit about the history, and we can understand and respect that. And they're still quite upset with Quebec about that. We've made it quite clear that Quebec is a province in this country, and so is Newfoundland and Labrador. And that as long as we can speak with other provinces and our Premier can negotiate with other premiers, and there's going to be a benefit to the province of Newfoundland, we'll continue in that type of dialogue. But the Premier's also been very clear. He's also been very clear that he would not remove the appeal to the Supreme Court for the good faith clause, and I'm not sure if the members opposite were present all week during question period, but I think the Premier was quite clear. I was here, I heard it loud and clear last week, and again this week as well. And we also heard this afternoon about some of the risks. And of course, the member for Fairland had mentioned, you know, getting involved in hydroelectric projects is with great risk. And certainly when they got involved in the Muskrat Falls projects, there was risks involved as well. And of course, that's why when there's risks involved in something is to the magnitude of hydroelectric projects, they should certainly be debated in the House of Assembly. I believe they should certainly be debated in the House of Assembly. And so I think this PMR is coming forward now on the whole notion based on questions in question period around our Premier speaking with the Premier of Quebec. And I believe that's kind of what they're hinting at here, because they want to make sure that nothing gets done, I guess, without them knowing about any of the conversations. And I think, as I said, we've been very clear. The Minister of Natural Resources has been very clear. But for some reason, this opposition has a great bone to pick with Quebec. I think the member for Topsail Paradise even just said the other day that Quebec was holding us to our knees, and Quebec is still holding us to our knees now. Well, you know, I think that type of language and that type of dialogue and that type of conversation doesn't encourage any good conversations with premiers from other provinces. And you know, they're so ticked off with Quebec. I think that's where some of the rushing of the Muskrat project came from. You know, there's no greater overcorrection for the Muskrat Falls project, or for the Upper Churchill project, than Muskrat Falls. They were so determined to put that through because they did no longer want Quebec to determine the fate of Newfoundland and Labrador. They were so determined to force that through. You know, there's one thing to be mad at Quebec, is another thing to rush through a project, $11.4 billion. $11.4 billion, the most expensive project in the province's history, was not debated in this House of Assembly, and now they have the gall to introduce a private member's motion suggesting that any future conversations around the Upper Churchill should be debated in the House of Assembly. It is just complete irony, and it flies in the face of everything that the previous administration had said and done with respect to the Muskrat Falls project. Mr. Speaker, I understand my time is getting short, and there's just a minute or two here. As I understand, the members opposite will get the opportunity to close. But, you know, as I said, it's just certainly something to hear that they want to now debate things in the House Assembly, coming from administration. I believe, was there any fall sittings in the House of Assembly? I think there was a couple of instances. Did Premier Williams have a fall sitting? I think they were open for 34 days or something in 2008. What, and then Premier Dunderdale didn't have a fall sitting as well. They're not a fan of doing things in the House of Assembly.
The member for Port-au-Port, Stephenville.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the protection there. I know the members opposite are getting a little hostile, but they certainly have all afternoon to close debate. I was enjoying the fact that I could contribute to debate. I think the member from Mount Pearl North enjoyed most of his time picking on the member for Bonavista, which had no due course in the subject of debate here. But again, the point being, some complete irony here this afternoon. We have an opposition now that wants to discuss things in the House of Assembly, and as I said, we're more than welcome to doing that. Our Premier is committed to that, and the Minister of Natural Resources is committed to that, and I look forward to being a part of that process. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.